That is so dramatic. So dramatic. Oh, let's see. Anyway, I don't think we have anybody watching, so we can say anything we want. That's pretty cool. Hi, Dave.
Penis.
Howdy.
Penis. Yeah, penis.
Penis and balls.
Boobies.
Okay, so my choice of a thumbnail for this show was based on, I know ChatGPT is so politically correct. If I ask it to draw a Brazilian douche canoe, I would not get it. Would say, oh, I can't do that. So I asked for a Brazilian banana canoe, and that's what I came up with. So you just got to use your imagination a little bit. But anyway, so I was inspired to do this because episode 1, there's a new channel on YouTube, and I got an email from Mr. Otangelo, and he's got a channel called Origins TV. And he's using AI to do content. I don't know if he's still going. I'm not sure if he's still going or not. Let's see. Is he going yet? He is still going. Yeah, because, okay, now that he's found AI, his videos are going to be hours and hours long. We're going to have to listen to this bullshit go on and on and on. But I thought we'd check out a little bit of that and talk a little bit about just anything that's on anybody's mind.
Well,
a lot of stuff going on in the world.
Deconverted man kicked me and Wildheart off the other night so he could talk with Otangelo, and we're like, I mean, not,
Oh, okay, good. Well,
just because, we're like, yeah, that's cool, So
yeah, you have
a few minutes later, he's like, well, I had enough of this, and he's this and that, and Otangelo's like, well, I don't appreciate you being rude to me, and Deconverted man's like, you're asking for it with this garbage. Well, I'm not going to talk to you anymore. And Deconverted man's like, this was your last chance. You're banned.
Yeah. Actually, I was wrong. Otangelo finished up at around 27 minutes with his AI video.
Then we can review it. Good. We can legitimately review it. Let's see. Okay. Okay, so Deconverted Man. So was that a live show that Deconverted Man did?
Yeah, most of his stuff is live. It was yesterday or the day before.
Okay, he's got one from one day ago, but that's gonna go for an interview.
No, that's with Peter.
Okay. Missing Miracles 6 days ago. Got one 28 minutes ago. I don't know. I don't see a live, because we do want to put that out there in chat and in the description.
Let me look. I'll find it.
Yeah.
Because I was on there, so I know it was just a couple of days ago.
Yeah. So before we look at that, I've got a picture or something here on the screen. And anybody can do this, but it always takes a little bit of work to find out how to do this. And I'm going to produce a very small video that shows you exactly how to do this. But when you're listening to these creationists say, oh, the chimp is only 86% identical, or some scientists say it's 98.9% identical or 99.2, you have to listen to them and take their word for it, right? Or you could go out and start looking in depth at all these genomes. And this is let me see if I can make that bigger. Where's the zoom? Zoom. You can actually download every single gene in order for every chromosome, X and Y, and you can go look at how many actual chromosomes are on Y. and there's and the mitochondrial chromosomes. And this right here shows the first column shows the start of the gene, and the second column shows the end. Third column shows the chromosome, and then it gives you whether it's a plus or minus. That's which direction the genome is read in, and it reads both ways. As creationists will be glad to tell you. Then it gives you a little description. It gives you the symbol for the gene. The one I like is vinculin. I don't think I have it here, but anyway, so I typed in vinculin, which is a gene I'm studying, and right away I found a vinculin pseudogene. Vinculin is on chromosome 10, and there's only one copy of it that humans can use. But there is a pseudogene, which means that it somehow got squished, it got rearranged and put into chromosome 2 for some reason. And this happens all of the time. It tells you that there are about 16,000 pseudogenes. There are all sorts of these things like, okay, here's where it says whether it's a pseudogene. Here's protein coding. That means we actually know that it codes. This is long non-coding RNA, which means that ENCODE found that it transcribed and got turned into RNA, and we may or may not know what it does. This particular long non-coding RNA is an uncharacterized location, so we don't know the function of that yet, or if it even has one. It could just be something that has no effect. In order to find a function, you've got to do a whole hell of a lot. Here we have small nucleolar RNAs which end up in the nucleus, and it goes on. And then there's a lot of pseudogene. There's uncharacterized locations, basically, and so it gives you a lot of information, but it gives you all the genes in order. And now you can go and look at the chimp chromosome, and you'll find that there's a whole lot of what they call synteny between these orders of these different genomic regions. But you'll find that these uncharacterized regions do not match up exactly. They may be in the chimp, they may not. They will even more likely not be in the mouse, And when we look at chimps, we think, oh, he's more like a relative than the mouse is. I don't feel related to a mouse. I feel sort of related to a chimp. So there's a whole lot of information that you can get. And you can do this they have, I don't know how many thousand genomes that they've done. But this is some really important work. And what I like to do is go right down to the basics and take a look at what's really, really going on. And then there's, let's see, okay, I can do another one here. Let's see, what do we got? Okay, so you can actually go down and look at the entire genome. This is only showing, I think it's showing chromosome 1, and it shows the whole chromosome, basically. Here's the P area, which is usually smaller, and the Q area. Here's the centromeres. Centromere or centrosome? Yeah. Anyway, and then you can pick each gene over here, and you can look at them, and it'll pop them up for you. Like look at gene 3 or chromosome 3, not each gene, each chromosome. And then each of these little areas, that are green are coding, basically, or one of the things that go to that table that I just pulled up. But anyway, if you really want to understand evolution or understand why the creationists are nonsense, you have to go look at this, because they'll say, they'll show a paper where they found a pseudogene that's functional, right? But you have to understand that there are 16,000 pseudogenes, and we found a couple hundred. We found function for a couple hundred. And they say, if we go on for another 500 years, they'll all be functional. But no, there's no reason to think that they're all functional. In fact, you can tell that they're not all functional by doing a comparison between different human beings. And you'll find that certain kinds of changes to that protein tell you that it absolutely cannot be functional, because something like a cysteine will pop in, which means that it would change the folding of that protein entirely. So, I mean, you may have a gene with an extra cysteine that I don't have, and we can tell that for that gene, if there was a function, one of us would be dead. but we're both alive. So obvious. So you can make and you can compare to other animals and all of that. So I mean, what scientists actually do is not blather like Otangelo is going to be blathering here in a moment, but they go down and they actually look at the goddamn details of the actual DNA and what it's doing, and we figure out what it does in the cell, that sort of thing. That takes a lot of work, and it's something that we're going to be working on for the next 300 years, probably. Well, with AI, maybe the next 50. And we'll
I don't know, Mike. That all sounds really, really boring. Can you put it in the form of like two rappers beefing with each other so I can maintain interest?
I don't know about rappers, but basically, creationists wrong, scientists right.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that works.
Yeah, okay. Okay. That sums it up. Yeah.
I can't find
you fuckers. The problem is...
Deconverted Man took it down or something, or made it private, Mike.
Oh, he did? Okay. Why do you make it private?
He does that a lot. If he doesn't like it or what, he'll just take it down or private it. So
okay.
Because it's not there, so maybe he'll show up in the chat and you could ask him.
How did life begin? Okay, we got a real treat here. And I'm probably going to get shit for promoting his new channel. He's got 16 subscribers. I think I was the first and second one, and he's already up to 16. And he's going to probably go up to many thousand subscribers because Christians love this shit.
Oh yeah, they gobble it up.
Yeah, and you atheists, you fucking atheists, you won't even subscribe to my channel. Really kind of pisses me off.
Well, you're not telling us, things that we want to hear. You're not telling us that I'm going to get eternal life and that I'm going to get 72 virgins in heaven. You work that into your spiel somehow, you might get more attention.
Yeah. The Brazilian Canoe, okay, overlap. Episode 1, Journey. Okay, here we go. Episode 1, Journey. But what I'm saying is that my contribution to his subscriptions is going to be negligible compared to the Christians that are going to jump onto his site. So he's going to have a lot of them. We'll get rid of that. Anyway, so you want to hear Otangelo's voice?
Not really.
he's really worked on it.
How did life begin? How did non-living chemicals transform into a structured
I think he started using gummies.
He must have, yeah. This sounds way better than his usual voice, which sounds kind of like the bear from the Cleveland show. Like Cleveland.
Yep. Anyway, okay. Well, we shouldn't pick on because people pick on my voice too. You guys don't, but all the creationists do.
I mean, people picked on my voice several times today. They kept saying that I was an AI voice.
You are.
Yeah,
you are an AI, James.
I absolutely am.
You are.
Hello, look at the tree.
Information-driven
Oh, look at the trees.
System capable of replication, metabolism, and organization. Today, we dive into one of science's most perplexing questions, the origin of life. Despite decades of research, no known natural process has been demonstrated to bridge the gap between chemistry and life. For over a century, scientists have sought to explain how life arose from non-living matter. Despite numerous hypotheses...
Should I speed this up a little? What do you think?
So is the reason he's using an automated voice is because Disney said you can't use the Kermit the Frog voice anymore?
Okay.
Well, and it also says that they haven't proven that life is just chemistry. They haven't disproven that life is.
They haven't disproven it. That's the important.
There's a lot of chemical explanations, even if not all chemical explanations.
They have so many things they found in abiogenesis recently, including that sugar-studded asteroid that Scott was talking about. Or comet. Was it a comet or an asteroid? I think it was an asteroid.
Yeah, it was out.
And
in
then
the Kuiper Belt. It was a Kuiper Belt object.
Yeah, okay, Kuiper belt object. And they found on Bennu, they found all 4 nucleic acids, and they found like 15 amino acids, which are just absolutely amazing stuff coming out of that we're finding out.
I need
Pretty soon
to
you're
read.
going to find
an asteroid covered with eyeballs.
Yeah.
That's how we got all the eyeballs. They just came down from an asteroid.
At this point, we have methods by which all of the basic building blocks of living organisms can be produced through natural chemical synthesis, through catalysis and other processes. You can get nucleotides from running electricity through sand. You can get polypeptides through a variety of things, an electric charge in a chemical solution. You can get polysaccharides a number of ways, apparently now, including asteroids out in space have them on them. Those are the 3 components that pretty much all life is constructed from.
Yeah. Yep. And there's RNA. Is very interesting. Little tiny RNAs. They basically they join up under I think alkaline conditions.
Yeah,
Demeter was here; he could help me. But we did a model of small RNAs, and we folded them, and showed that that each one of them, like very small RNAs, will fold up into a structure like a protein, and these things are catalytic, and certain amino acids are more likely to glom onto them. So little short proteins glom onto them and basically form this more complex thing that's kind of like a ribosome. This all happens naturally in chemistry. Now, the problem we have with... Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, it's funny that you mentioned RNA. I have a slightly unrelated anecdote about an interaction I was having with a creationist, where the creationist said, show me a DNA structure that has a base pair other than, cytosine, thymine, adenine, and guanine. And I thought that was so hilarious. The guy has no idea that RNA is a thing and that it does have exactly that. It has uracil. So all I said was, apparently you've never heard of uracil, to which he responded, huh?
Yeah. Yeah, one of them today was talking about how jumping by basically transposons, transposable elements, how they stick a piece of RNA into your DNA, and no, they don't stick RNA into your DNA. No. And it's like they don't have any. They haven't looked at it in any detail, and I know it's boring, but people do look at this in extreme detail. And for me, it's riveting. I mean, I just get excited when I look at the actual sequences. So there are people like me around that are doing this professionally.
Nerd.
Hopefully. Nerd. Yeah. Anyway. Okay, let's listen to some of this bullshit. I sped it up.
The fundamental problem remains. Life is an information-driven system, yet information does not arise from chemistry alone. This presentation...
Bullshit. We keep ending up with this information bullshit. So information is a suitcase word, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's got a lot of shit packed into it. And one of the things packed into it is we talk about how information goes over wires so humans can communicate.
Yeah.
But I always like, I got to do a little thing with Jim Boob on this, where basically he was saying, oh, information, it's not physical. It can't be physical. It's always physical.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah,
the sound waves coming out of my mouth right now are physical. All the shit happening in my brain is physical. Your hearing is based on converting those sound waves into electrical impulses, basically physical, going into your neurons and harmonizing with your brain, because we're both humans. We both know the same language. We've been brought up in very much the same environment. And we have this basically synchronization that happens between human beings. But when you look at it, it's all physical. And information is never not physical. I mean, can you show me some information that isn't physical? That's what I want them to do. Show me some information somewhere that's not in a physical form. How about the Bible? Is that physical?
Mm.
Anyway, okay.
It's probably in the Trinity somewhere between a ghost and a spirit or something.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. We can imagine information as being this abstract, but when you're I'm a pure physicalist. Everything I see or think about is physical in some manner.
Toasters are material, so
they are. So is toast.
So is toast.
Yeah.
Based on X-Ray of Life, Volume 1, lays the foundation for investigating the challenges surrounding the origin of life.
Oh, it's his book.
Before we ask how life began, we must first ask, what is life? What separates a living system from an inanimate collection of molecules?
Blah, blah.
According to physicist Paul Davies, 10 key properties define life: information storage and processing, replication, metabolism.
A little too complicated, Paul. But yeah.
Life, a yelling mirage in a sea of fear. We do not know what the life is.
Yeah. Trying to define life has been a real challenge for years and years.
He's not
Paul
like
Davies,
number 10
let me
anyways.
see. Paul Davies, let's see. Where the hell is he? Isn't he who the hell is he? Okay, he's an English physicist, writer, and broadcaster. Is that Paul Davies? Let me see here. Okay. Affiliated with the Institute for Quantum Studies at Chapman University in California. Oh, there you go. Right there, California. Scientific research, theoretical physics, cosmology, astrobiology, whatever. Okay. Okay, so let's see. What do we got here? Replication, self-reproduction. Yeah, okay.
Metabolism, selective molecular
See, this is the kind of shit that sometimes bores me.
Control,
homeostasis.
Number 10 is
that
evolutionary.
Paul Davies guy that he's invoking is probably not a creationist. He's probably somebody who accepts evolutionary science because, he's an astrobiologist. So he probably understands that biology makes literally no sense without evolution. So I would guess that he would probably not agree with however Otangelo is going to use his ideas in this video.
Oh, but wait a minute. He did an opinion piece called Taking Science on Faith.
Oh.
I hear music. Davies argued that... What am I hearing?
I'm hearing somebody's TV or somebody's news.
Breaking news. Looks like the ceasefire is over. Israel's back at it again in Gaza.
Oh, Christ Almighty!
Of course.
That was me. Sorry.
Jesus.
Breaking news.
Jesus H. Christ. Okay, let's see. Immutability of physical laws has origins in Christian theology, he's claiming. So, yeah, I thought I saw a thing on Paul Davies that I thought maybe he was a creationist, but
that Chapman University is although it has religious origins like a lot of universities, it's actually secular, and you don't have to sign any kind of statement of faith. I just did a little quick inquiry.
Yeah. So he wrote an article about science and faith, but there's a lot of people that believe in all of the science and they're still Christian. So he may be one of those, but then he believes that the physical laws. It sounds like he believes in the tag argument that without God, you couldn't have physical laws.
You have laws, so there must be a lawgiver. If there is a lawgiver who created the laws of nature, evolution is one of the laws of nature that lawgiver created.
Yep. Oh, let's see here. Oh,
of course, if you're getting your impressions about Paul Davies from Otangelo or other creationist sources, like from their quotes, you still have to go back and find the quote in its context and make sure that person is actually saying what people like Otangelo and other creationists are saying.
It's a very good policy, Scott, because they really like to misrepresent people.
Never trust a quote from a creationist. Never.
Yeah. So it says he's not a creationist. He's a renowned theoretical physicist and cosmologist. He explores the universe's origins and the nature of reality through a scientific lens, often questioning the limitations of current scientific explanations rather than promoting a specific religious or philosophical viewpoint. So he's, he's just a questioner, that sort of thing. And there are a lot of people without sufficient imagination to understand how physics works and how life came to be and how life is a pure physical process. The first mistake we make is that we think things like information and concepts and abstracts, we think that they actually exist somewhere in a non-physical form in our minds, right? And I think Otangelo, I've listened to about 30 seconds of Otangelo, and he was already talking about consciousness in the mind and stuff. But anyway. Okay, it's a pretty good list.
One of my favorites to quote is Peter Atkins that said, the simplest molecule when it forms a bond is making information. So there you go. You just need a physical thing to make a bond, and that's information. So yeah, the road is all ahead of them, or the hill is all ahead of them, however you want to say it, to show that it's not physical.
Yep. Okay. Is he going to read this?
Chemistry, water as a solvent, cellular compartmentalization, and evolutionary adaptability.
You read it.
These characteristics reveal that life is not just a collection of molecules, it is an organized, information-driven system.
Wait,
so
that doesn't follow.
Isn't just where
that doesn't follow.
Yeah, there are molecules that are self-organizing or complexes of molecules that are self-organizing. Think about the crystal. Nobody's saying that thing is spiritually inhabited and blah blah blah.
Some folks do,
and it's complicated, and yet if they form naturally.
Yeah, there's this bullshit that they call it reduction, right? When you reduce something to just molecules, it's just molecules, it's just atoms. They always use the word just, J-U-S-T, which is not how reduction actually works. Okay, reduction is to help us understand something in a simpler form. It doesn't mean the thing itself is actually just atoms in motion. I mean, there's a whole lot of structure and a whole lot else going on. And you can talk about one particular physical system in about 5 billion different ways.
Yeah.
You could say, oh, it's just this, or it's just that, or it's just that 5 billion times, right? And then you're getting a little closer to the truth, right?
And it's maybe not even like
that was that closer to the truth episode that we was talking about too. That you can't just examine the micro or the macro; it has to be all together. Yeah.
Right.
Go ahead, Austin. Sorry.
All I was saying is that it's not even necessarily a simplification. It's looking at things from a different viewpoint.
Right.
Like humans, we're just swirling masses of atoms. The entire environment we live in is just a swirling mass of atoms. That's true from one viewpoint, and it's also true from another viewpoint that I'm here and my table's here and the floor is there, and they're technically separate. But from another viewpoint, they're all just a big mass of atoms that are mostly empty space.
Yeah, and there's many different hierarchical levels that we can look at things. And we are humans. We are a certain size. We have a certain scale in the universe, right? And there are things in humans like meaning. Meaning is all a human thing, right? We do this within ourselves. Of course, there would be some homologous form of meaning in a raccoon because they have the same emotions, brain structure, and whatever. And that is one level that we can look at things. And humans are really good at doing these abstract levels, hierarchical levels, right? And looking at things in different ways. And but we're not good enough that we aren't confused by our own intelligence. The problem with humans is that they're always confused by our intelligence. Okay.
Somebody's cat is going absolutely crazy.
Loki, will you just give it up? He's got the mousey in his mouth.
I had to take my headphones off to make sure it wasn't mine.
I can't stop it. Loki, just give it up. Okay, I'll play with you. God damn it. When he catches the mousy, he just sits there and he tries to kill it. The mousy is, it's this, right? It's this fucking feather thing, and he thinks it's real. Sometimes he goes over and he picks it up and he meows like that, in the middle of the night. Like he's killing it again. I don't know what the hell's wrong with this cat. Sorry, guys. Hopefully he'll quit. Okay, Loki. Right. Shut up. Yeah. Loki, I'm streaming Loki.
That's why I always let my dogs out right before I stream.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they'll be over at the door whining to go out. Yep.
I should go start the vacuum cleaner for a minute. That'll get rid of Loki.
Yeah. Clear the house.
You're cool, Dad.
Oh, I've done that twice in the last week. And I talked to my counselor about it this morning, and I said I finally got to the point where I'm so goddamn sick of one cat after another. He wants pets. He wants me to play with them. They want party time. They wake me up in the middle of the night, and it's like I get to have a break once in a while. And so if I start the vacuum cleaner, I get like a 30-minute break. So.
We don't even have to start it. If you just get in the closet and get it out, she'll hear you getting it out. And that's enough. She's already gone.
Yep. If I go over and pick it up. Oh, my God. I'm going to have to get the vacuum. You can still hear him?
Yeah, it's okay.
That's all right. It's just in the background.
Okay.
Don't worry about it.
Arranged into a coherent, functional system. According to NASA, life is a self-sustained chemical system capable of undergoing Darwinian evolution.
Ooh, nice picture.
This definition is useful in astrobiology and origins of life research because it focuses on functionality rather than specific chemistry. It implies that life must sustain itself, maintain homeostasis, and be able to evolve over generations. However, this definition raises critical questions. Is life purely a chemical system, or does it require an information processing framework? Does evolution alone explain the origin of self-replicating systems? What about non-material aspects of biological organization, such as encoded instructions? While this definition is useful for...
Okay, again, he's got a concept, and he says, oh, it's not, non-material. So he's already basically loading the question, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You missed an important one, too. As far as I know, one of the important parts of the definition of life is the ability to die. We generally don't consider an organism alive if it doesn't die.
Right.
And what's interesting about that is, by their definition of God, God cannot die. So technically, God is not alive. So even if God created life, well, that means life was made by something non-living.
Non-life. Uh-oh. And you got that tardigrade there. Nothing kills a tardigrade other than it just going belly up and dying.
Yeah.
They're amazing.
It can survive almost everything else except that its own inevitability of one day they just go belly up.
Yeah.
Those are those little
nothing
fuckers
else,
that...
But nothing else will kill them.
Yeah, they can
those are those
heat,
little
pressure, vacuums, extreme cold, all kinds of crazy stuff.
Exposed to outer space.
So herds of them are traveling around on our pillows and in our sheets, basically, and in our hair. And
they like moss.
Herds of buffalo.
I found out. Yeah, they really like moss. That's one of the things I've been looking for with my microscope. It's a luck of the draw to find them, though. But one of these days, I hope to find one.
Well, you can find C. elegans up the ass if you just look at any little chunk of dirt in the forest.
They go way back on the evolution tree. I was just watching a video that's going through. I think, don't you have that chart, Mike, with all the...
I do.
Yeah, they were going through that, and yeah, there's the tardigrade way back when, and they're still around.
Yeah, that was so cool. I was looking. He just did that useful charts on, and I was looking at my TV.
That's the one. Yeah.
Okay, I was looking at my TV, and right behind my TV is my whiteboard where I have that chart pinned. Because my son's bought it for me for Christmas, so it was really cool to see him talking about it.
Yeah, I just watched that. It was a good video.
Yep. Oh, gee.
Hey, Purple.
Hello, Purple.
Purple. Do we have... is anybody listening to us? I don't know.
Purple's there.
Oh, Purple's there. 9 people watching. Okay, let's play a little more Brazilian Douche Canoe.
explain how life emerged or where its information came from. If life is fundamentally driven by encoded instructions, is it enough to think of it as just chemistry? For over a century, scientists have attempted to uncover how life could have emerged from non-living matter. Despite these discoveries, a major gap remains. No experiment has demonstrated a plausible, step-by-step path from prebiotic chemistry to a self-replicating, functional cell.
Ooh,
so,
Eugene.
While we've learned much about organic chemistry, we still have no working model for life's emergence. If life began as a simple process, why do even the simplest cells exhibit staggering complexity? What changed?
It's the flagella motor.
The flagellum's coming.
It's irreducibly complex. It can't just be a nub. It has to have a fancy movement.
Yeah.
And I take issue with the claim that there's no such thing as a simple life form. That's nonsense. Paramecium, an amoeba, yeah, those are pretty simple life forms.
Oh, and when I'm looking at some of the tiny, we talk about the microscope, I look at these tiny little microscopic life, right, that I'm picking up with the microscope, but in the background are countless specks moving around that are even smaller and even simpler. Yeah. Oh, definitely.
Yeah, a simple coccus bacteria or a spirillus bacteria, those are all very simple too. So I don't know where they get this idea that there's no such thing as a simple.
And they don't all have these fancy flagella. I see ones that just got what I would call a stupid little whip kicking around, you know, and it goes this way and then it kind of goes over that way. It doesn't really have a direction. The idea is just mobility. You know, the keeping a direction, especially when you're that small, is kind of hard to do.
I'm trying to find something. I was just looking at a picture today of those. What the hell? The flagellum is similar to these little needles that bacteria have that inject things, right?
Yeah.
And I was looking at those, and there's type 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and they become increasingly more complex. They go from very simple in bacteria to very complex. So right there, and of course, there was somebody wrote a paper, and they suggested, based on phylogeny, that those little injectors happened after the flagellum, and the flagellum lost genes to make them. But then other work in the future pushed back on that. And so right now we're not entirely sure. But if you looked at those simple types, you're going to find that those were prior to any flagellum. And maybe I'll find the illustration here while we're looking. But it was amazing how simple. The type 1, I think, was just a few proteins that basically did this function.
The ciliates I've seen under my microscope, they just have like little hairs sticking out all over them. They look like little spiky balls, and that's enough to get them moving around.
Yeah, cilia.
And grab food. You know, stuff just gets caught in there. It's good enough,
membrane,
and it doesn't have all that fancy stuff. It's just like little hairs sticking out is all.
Oh, too much shit in my head. You know that? There's too much shit in my head. The thing
is always, if you can show, simple and a little different, just looking at something in a drop of my pond water, I don't see why it's such a stretch to say, okay, well, this can, change to this, can change to this, and then eventually you get a little fancier.
Yeah. Gradual accumulation of positive adaptations, positive mutations. It's really simple. I mean, evolution in general is fairly complex, but like specific concepts like that can be incredibly simple, and it blows my mind that creationists can't or won't comprehend it. And really, I think the basic fact of it is, and honestly, this should be something that is mentioned in every discussion on creationism. The simple fact of it is that creationists will never accept evolution because the Bible says God created, not God evolved. And a lot of them will admit that. So, like, they kind of
misframe the conversation. Like when you're debating with a creationist and giving them all this evidence and all this logos and all this ethos, they don't care about any of that. It's as simple as the fact that if they have to choose between facts, evidence, statistics, percentages, and logic, and their scripture, they're going to choose their scripture. It doesn't matter how well you explain to them that what the facts and evidence are, and that the facts and evidence support this conclusion. They're going to ignore that for their scripture. They're not going to reject scripture.
And this, complicated drawing here, I can start stripping stuff all down from that. You get to one single filament. That still gets you function to move around. Now you get 2. Now you get 3. Now they start to wiggle a little more. It gets whatever controls. I wouldn't say a muscle, but you know what I mean. Something that gets it wiggling, something that gets it spinning, and then it adds and adds and adds. I don't see the problem adding from a single filament to get to that fancy tail.
And even if that filament just gives you like a 30% advantage over, others, then that's just going to be good enough to take the next generation onto, into the population. So.
It doesn't require an exceptional level of imagination to conceive how these things develop.
Yeah, like I say, you look under the microscope, and some of them are complicated enough to have a direction. Other ones seem to be going in circles, and other ones just kind of go with the flow, But as long as it was enough to find some food and make another one, it's good enough. It's the nub. But the nub that Jim Bob's been looking for is right there. He just ignores the nub right in front of his face.
I think the nub Jim Bob is looking for is the one between his legs.
Here's the different secretion systems that they found in, I think, bacteria, specialized secretion systems. The one I think that they figure the flagella evolved from was this one, the type 3. But anyway, you can see that there are much simpler systems here, like this one right here and this one right here, right? They started out simple, and yet they have homology, right? There's homology between that and that, these different colors. And so you can see it right here if you look at enough extant species. But the problem is that extant species have also evolved for 4 billion years. So we can't believe that this is exactly what the precursor looked like. There was a common ancestor between all these secretion systems, and that was something else entirely. And so if you just look a little bit further instead of just saying, oh, how could that have evolved? I mean, that's just stupidity, right?
They do it with the cell, too. They show a modern cell, and they say, look how complex this is, without taking you and showing, well, at one time there was a lot simpler cell, and there's still simple cells today. And when you leave out all that intermediate, then you don't see it, right?
Yep. Oh, let's see here. Okay, I want to get that
one example of really, really simple things is biofilm. Biofilm is so simple, we don't even really count it as life technically, I don't think. It doesn't meet a lot of the criteria for a living thing, but it's basically a living thing. I mean, does have cellular structure. It does take in resources, and it does reproduce and die. It has as many of the qualifiers of a living thing as a virus does.
Yeah, so to say the virus is questionable too, because it's lacking 1 or 2 of the things off the list, but it has all the rest.
It lacks an ability to reproduce on its own, but it has a reproductive mechanism by hijacking a host cell and forcing it to reproduce for it.
Yeah. And that's pretty simple.
Yep. Oh,
good enough.
Yeah.
Good enough.
Okay, so put our screen back. There he is. Oh, he's like full screen. So how do I forget how I make him? Okay, there we are. Okay, we'll listen to a little more Otangelo.
The deeper we look into the cell, the more engineering we find. Back in the 1800s, Charles Darwin imagined life starting in a warm little pond where chemicals mixed into simple critters. Scientists then saw cells as simple blobs.
You want to comment on that one?
Gosh. So this is like how we try to explain abiogenesis to like 8th graders or little kids who don't understand complex chemistry and, you know, geochemistry and geophysics and like a really high level science, which is what abiogenesis is. It's like the bleeding edge of multiple interconnected disciplines. So when you explain it to like a youngster, a young kid who doesn't understand, you know, complex microbiology and stuff like that, you can euphemize it as, you know, chemicals in a mixture that have been, you know, it's a catalytic environment that, you know, was structurally changed by the input of energy. Usually the theorized energy is electrical, like a lightning striking this mixture in this catalytic environment. And that created simple elements of life. Nobody is saying that, you know, a primordial soup got struck by lightning and lizards started crawling out of it. That is a straw man argument. That is not what the actual model is.
It's the energy in thing, because when you have an energy in from, that's why you can have thermal vents or lightning or different environments. There's all different things. It's that energy in that helps spur on these reactions, right?
Yeah.
Hey, so Breakfast Tacos, I just gave you a wrench. Can you post a link to that upcoming debate for us to take a look at?
Like the sun and, you know, all the cosmic rays we get, and, you know, there could be all kind of ways to get energy in that could cause a reaction.
Meteoric impacts.
Yeah.
There's...
With abiogenesis, that's one of the things I thought. Mike, real quick, what do you think about the theory that a impact is what started plate tectonics?
I'm not familiar with that.
You haven't heard that one?
No, I think plate tectonics was kind of a natural outgrowth of these convection currents, you know, in the mantle. I think it had to happen basically as the Earth cooled.
Well, like there's the newer, kind of a newer hypothesis based on certain remnants of what look like huge strike patterns. I forget what they say about the what's it called when you get down to the old school crust or whatever. You have it up there.
The KT boundary.
No, not the KT boundary. We're talking before that. But
Precambrian?
No, not the epoch. It's a geological term. Of course, those are too. But come on, Mike. Y'all have this kind of
like the mantle and stuff like that.
Well, it's above that, but at any rate,
the granitic crust.
No, that's not the word. I can't.
But anyway, really, there's that idea that it hits so deep that it just kind of
hard and deep, and in lots of places that kind of, you know, broke things up and got some energy injected into the mantle or whatever that got it started rotating. So that's just kind of a new. I saw. I don't know.
We must have saw the same
PBS
thing.
Eons or something like that.
We must have saw the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it was
there's a sthenosphere, lithosphere, outer core, inner core, lower mantle, upper mantle.
It has to do with like the oldest parts of a continent. You know, we have all those exotic terrains. You know that kind of built up onto North America, but there was that original core stuff that's up, you know, where you are, and I forget the name of it.
Crating.
Yeah, that's it. Crating. Thank you, Nestle.
Okay.
But
Craton?
It looks interesting, but you know, Craton. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Well, I'll give you time to read up on it, Mike, and then we can talk about it another time.
Yeah, I'm sure we have some geologist friends lying around that we could ask about that.
Well, I say, Scott saw it and I saw it, so I was just wondering. So,
yeah, we've had a few really good geologists popping up. Let me see. I'm trying to find something.
GeoSam is a good friend.
Yeah.
Big Bad Mama.
A really interesting, relevant one is Dr. Ken Wolgamuth. He's a geologist. And he happens to be an evangelical Christian, but he is very against young Earth creationism.
Yeah, I think Erica has had
about it
a lot, or several times on his channel. Her channel.
He's a very nice guy.
Yep.
Steve Bauman, he doesn't really speak on those issues, but he's really good. Yeah. And now Purple Rhymes with Orange just popped up with that too.
Yeah, Big Bad Mama does the Hovind videos a lot and stuff. He's a real geologist. He used to do water table stuff or whatever, and they would do cleanup sites when they, these factories or whatever would pollute the thing, and they would do all that kind of stuff. So he's a real geologist.
Steve Bauman's good, yeah. If you took a pot of oatmeal, real tall pot, and it started to basically dry on top, or the crust on top, there are going to be convection currents in that oatmeal, basically coming from the heat source on the bottom, and you're going to naturally see things move around on that surface. Or drop some crackers into oatmeal and take a look. I mean that.
Yeah, it's like
have to be in.
It's like underwear that you haven't washed in a month.
Well, the leading idea is still pretty much like just the convection currents move stuff, but there's just this idea out there that it could have been a big rock that kind of gave it a kick or whatever. You know what I mean?
Do you have any idea how hard I had to bite my tongue when they were saying it hits hard and deep and in many places? And then you come in with that?
Gaping hole.
Yeah. So this is a guy who's written science books and on origin of life. He's got like 12,000 page volumes, that he's written on this stuff, and I just wanted to listen again to what he says about the theory.
1800s, Charles Darwin imagined life starting in a warm little pond where chemicals mixed into simple critters. Scientists then.
This is our scientist friend saying chemicals mixed in. That Darwin said chemicals mixed into simple critter. I don't think Darwin ever said that. He did talk about a warm little pond, in poetic ways. But anyway.
Saw cells as simple blobs. Spoiler: we now know they're mind-blowingly complex. In a letter to his friend J.D. Hooker, Darwin wrote in 1871, "But if, and oh what a big if, we could conceive in some warm little pond with all sorts of ammonia and phosphoric salts, light, heat, electricity present, that a protein compound was chemically formed, ready to undergo still more complex changes."
Yeah.
Although Darwin refrained from further public statements on how life may have appeared, his views established the framework that would lead to numerous attempts to explain the origin of life by introducing principles of historical explanation. In the 19th century, many scientists assumed that life could have originated from extremely simple, structureless organisms. One of the most influential figures in this view was Ernst Haeckel. He claimed that the simplest organism.
Oh, he's a cool-looking dude. He gets a real bad rap for stupid reasons. He was very
a Hawaiian shirt guy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Purple wants to post
creationists.
Purple wants to post a link.
Oh, why doesn't Purple have a goddamn wrench?
I think Purple said before that Purple didn't want a wrench, but Purple,
Purple's got to have one.
You got to have a wrench. So
you got to have a wrench.
You can have him take it back later if you want.
You know what? Just keep your damn wrench. Everybody else has one.
Everybody get a wrench.
Everybody get
you
a wrench.
Get a wrench. And you get a wrench. Everybody gets a wrench.
You got a wrench now.
Somebody said something about all the wrenches in my chat, and it's like, well,
look at mine.
If you're a regular, then I'm going to give you a wrench so you can post your stuff or whatever.
Having a wrench just means you're not Otangelo. That's what that means.
Exactly. Yeah, that's the way it is on this channel. Not Otangelo gets a wrench.
Yeah.
Pretty simple algorithm.
Well, it's the same thing. A lot of folks come through, and it's like, hey, post your stuff, and then, I don't have a wrench. So, there you got a wrench.
Loki, I don't want to play Mousy.
Okay. Yeah, you don't have to worry about it, Purple. You don't have to do anything. Just post your links. There's plenty of wrenches here.
We got a lot of wrenches. I'm going to run out of wrenches. I've got YouTube Premium. I'm probably going to have to get Premium Plus.
They have to charge you $3 more a month to get more wrenches.
It's not stressful here, but I tell you, sometimes I regret having a wrench at Misvision because I can't listen to the damn show because I'm too busy reading every damn comment and making people behave.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, Loki's got the mouse again, so just want to warn you guys. Okay. So, and the other thing that Charles Darwin established the framework. No, nobody established a damn framework for abiogenesis. Science does this stuff, right? There's no dogma that anybody's following. We're just looking for the truth.
Which he called monera, were nothing more than structureless bits of protoplasm capable of vital activities like nutrition, reproduction, and movement.
Yeah, okay.
If early scientists expected life, first scientific turning point in the investigation.
Let's get out of the goddamn 1800s, okay, at least.
Of the origin of life came in the 1920s with the formulation of the primordial soup hypothesis.
Okay, now we're up to 1920.
Alexander Oprin and J.B.S. Haldane. Oprin proposed that life on Earth originated from simple organic compounds that formed in a reducing atmosphere and accumulated in the oceans, creating a primordial soup where chemical evolution could lead to life. The key question here is, even if a soup of organic molecules existed, what mechanism turned it into a self-replicating, organized system? These ideas kicked off tons of experiments. Oprin claimed that the origin of life is a natural result of the evolution of matter. Haldane independently developed a similar idea, suggesting that organic molecules could have formed under early Earth conditions, driven by ultraviolet light and electrical discharges. This marked the beginning of systematic scientific inquiry into abiogenesis, setting the stage for later experimental research like the Miller-Urey experiment in 1953. In the early 1950s, Stanley L. Miller, working in the laboratory of Harold C. Urey at the University of Chicago, conducted the first experiment designed to clarify the chemical water, which he heated, forcing water vapor to circulate through the apparatus. And the certain acids could form recovery. He also played a pivotal role in abiogenesis research. Stanley L. Miller, who arrived in Chicago in 1951 after graduating from the University of California, Berkeley.
Ooh, I was born then. Actually, he's older than me. Holy shit.
Attended Urey's lecture. Urey suggested that it would be interesting to simulate the proposed reducing conditions of the primitive Earth to test the feasibility of organic compound synthesis. Miller zapped basic gases with electricity and, bam, made amino acids, the builder for science. Biggest assumptions in early abiogenesis.
I can make a prediction about what his issue with Miller-Urey is, because it's the same as every other creationist. They're going to say, oh, he just made peptides. He didn't make a living organism. So, it's like, that was his goal wasn't to make a living organism. It was to show that the building blocks that form a living organism can arrive through chemical catalysis, and that's exactly what he showed.
Yeah, and you would have to change the conditions as you go to show the evolution of life. Anyways, you couldn't expect it to form in the same beaker, right? Because the environment's going to change.
They found something really interesting. I think Miller-Urey came under criticism because they couldn't reproduce some of his stuff. And then they, without putting it in glass, and it turned out that glass was really important. But then this glass, this borosilicate, is something that was like abundant in early Earth atmosphere. So when they added the borosilicates, they all of a sudden ended up being able to reproduce some of his results. But then we got this business of whether the Earth was reducing or neutral or acidic all the time, from the beginning, right? And there's a whole lot that we don't know about the weather, what the weather was 4.5 billion years ago, and what the Earth actually looked like, and how many different phases it went through, and how many different microenvironments ended up being reducing or being acidic or being neutral. And we're putting that together, but you can't rule out just based on some theory. Oh no, there was never any reducing atmosphere. It's like,
well, we know one that it went through, and that was the Great Oxygen Catastrophe, which is very relevant because guess what was probably the first complex life was plant life. And guess what plants produce a lot of? Oxygen.
It almost is like, things fit the model. But far be it from me to tell some brainwashed YouTuber that they don't know what they're talking about.
Then you have this whole new environment for all these catalysts to go on and again. Yeah, so it's a thing.
And another
you
thing,
can't just do it in one beaker. Yeah.
Yes. And another thing is that the oxygen was really lethal to a lot of the life forms that existed when oxygenation started happening. And that drove complexification via a really strong selection pressure, lethal environment.
Yeah. And we should have learned from that, because that was the first example of a life form really fucking the planet up.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Isn't that when everything got all rusty?
You could definitely call that a mass extinction.
Everything the planet actually got all rusty for a little while.
Yeah, I got a feeling I should shut something down before I start something else up. Oh, let's see. Quit numbers. Okay. Where the hell am I? Okay. Moving on. Where are we? Okay, he's gonna claim that the Earth could possibly have done this. Miliary is invalid.
This research was that Earth's atmosphere was highly reducing, rich in methane, ammonia, and hydrogen. But was this assumption correct? The reducing atmosphere hypothesis seemed plausible. A reducing atmosphere would have been chemically...
Okay, it's an assumption that there never was a reducing microenvironment or atmosphere. That's an assumption also, Otangelo. So.
Well, doesn't finding amino acids in these meteorites or whatever they're finding them, doesn't it show that it can be in a reduced
they happen.
Atmosphere?
Yeah, in other ways, right? Yeah. Okay. So I mean, it's all mute now, especially after Bennu came back with a clean sample for us to look at, and they found 15 amino acids or something in that damn thing that we have today. The thing is that when amino acids first started getting together and forming, there were both DNL, they were both chirality, and there were hundreds of them. And then eventually, like over the period of billions of years, we selected out 20 of them. That's how life works, how evolution works.
D8 interview. Although there is a dispute over the composition of the primitive atmosphere, we've shown that either you have a reducing atmosphere or you are not going to have the organic compounds required for life. If you don't make them on Earth, you have to bring them in on comets, meteorites, or dust.
That could have been.
Certainly some material did come from these sources, but in my opinion, the amount would have been too small to effectively contribute to the origin of life.
Yeah, I looked into that one time, and the Great Bombardment or whatever, there was a lot of shit hitting the Earth. I mean, it was just constant. There was just this. So the amounts were in the billions of tons, I think. Of stuff
and,
that was coming to Earth.
That phrase, "in my opinion," ... Who the hell is saying "in my opinion"? Is that Otangelo's opinion?
That's Otangelo. Yeah.
Yeah.
What the fuck does he know about theology and asteroid bombardment?
Yeah.
How did he calculate that? Did he show his calculations about estimated bombardments and concentration of nucleotides per? And now we're just finding out that sugars were on a lot of these asteroids. So
yeah.
Well, and like Austin said.
Talk about bringing all the ingredients for a soup.
Exactly. That's what Austin said earlier. A meteor. Well, a meteor coming in with its own energy source, with its own amino acids, plunging into the water. There you go. You got everything you need. You've got the building blocks. You've got an energy source, and you've got water. There you go.
Besides, if you have even a small relative amount of those components coming in from an asteroid, yet they do happen to develop into self-replicating entities of some sort. Not necessarily life as we know it now, but maybe almost life, maybe 1/2 life, 1/3 life. Yet they're self-replicating. Yeah. You're going to get more. They're going to make more.
Yeah, if it does it once, it can do it again, right? Yeah.
It was by no means a small amount either, Scott. There were a lot of impacts, and a lot of those impacts were rather immense like one specific one, the Chicxulub impact was so massive we didn't realize it was there because it was too big to be seen with the naked eye. We didn't really realize it was there until we got
they found more of those
atmosphere height pictures. Yeah. And if you want another piece of information that substantiates that idea, there's a rather big and observable one. It's called the freaking moon. You know, you might have noticed the moon is absolutely pockmarked with craters from meteoric impacts. And it probably helped shield the Earth from a lot of those impacts in such a way that, you know, if we didn't have that moon, it might have been too many impacts, and then we wouldn't have life on Earth for a completely different reason.
Yep. And this is Otangelo talking, but somebody made a 12-step call on him and brought him to AA, and he's sobered up now, so this is what he now sounds like. So that's my theory. I'm going with that. I don't know.
If the early atmosphere was not reducing, how could abiogenesis have ever occurred? A major issue is that we really don't know what the early Earth's atmosphere was like.
Right.
There are all sorts of theories and speculations.
Yeah.
If we don't even know what early Earth was like, how can we claim to understand how life began? It is truly remarkable that Francis Crick and James Watson's discovery of the DNA double helix in 1953 stands as one of the greatest scientific breakthroughs of information, physiology, or medicine. For their work, shared with Maurice Wilkin, the prize recognized their contributions to understanding the molecular 19 of us now, could only state that in some sense, the origin of life appears at the moment to be almost a miracle, so many are the conditions which would have had to be satisfied to get it going. But then he adds, this should not be taken to imply that
somebody said miracle. Evolution disproven.
Yeah. Well, I can say it's miraculous, but it doesn't mean it's supernatural, you know.
The lesson to be taken from this: scientists never use the word miraculous in your scientific writings again, because people like Otangelo will jump on that and use it to misrepresent you. What he means is it's highly improbable, Otangelo. Not that it's a literal miracle. Not that Jesus came down and beat off onto the planet and his Jesus sperm got things going. It's not that kind of miracle. We're talking about something that has a low mathematical probability.
Yeah, I'm going to do it, Austin. Anyway, when I was like 12 or 13 years old, when I stole my first organic chemistry book from the library, I found out that carbon was a miracle, and I became obsessed for an entire year trying to find a kind of mathematics where I could do carbon chemistry mathematically. And I had charts and all kinds of papers all over my room, and I was going nuts. And the thing is, the carbon atom is the miracle. That is the thing that's right in that second row of the periodic table. It's right in the right position to create these tetravalent compounds. And it is why we have all this complexity. It's the orbitals in the carbon atom.
Yeah.
And then we have the ones around it, nitrogen and oxygen and phosphorus, that are very close to it, that also come into the mix, but the carbon atom pretty much controls everything. And carbon skeletons are amazing.
Which one of those are alive?
Carbon, I'd say it's alive. Well, organic, right? Carbon.
Because life doesn't come from non-life, and it's like, well, life is made up of the periodic table.
Yeah.
Carbon is as close to life as any element could be. Because of the amount of carbon compounds you can create. And if you can sit down with a pencil, once you realize simple carbon chemistry or organic chemistry, the complexity is amazing. That's what I was going nuts about. It's like, okay, you got alkanes, and then you have these isomers of alkanes, and then you can add an OH group, and you got an alcohol.
With carbon, you almost have the inevitability of more complex bonding, right?
Correct. Carbon is capable of forming a wide variety of atomic bonds because of its atomic structure. So it is essential to the molecular structure of living organisms because it's capable of creating so many different kinds of atomic bonds. You can basically
get any number of carbon atoms into some kind of workable shape. They're capable of forming atomic bonds due to their highly pairable atomic structure. One thing carbon can do is it can form rings, and those rings can connect to other rings, and so on.
Okay. Let's see. Is he going to say anything useful here? A statistical fallacy.
There are good reasons to believe that it could not have started on the Earth by a perfectly reasonable sequence of fairly ordinary chemical reactions.
Why not?
This reflects a faith statement rooted in his atheism.
I have another question too.
That naturalistic processes must.
What?
When was this book written?
Oh, this one?
Yeah,
Francis. Oh God.
Because I'm pretty sure they lived in like what, the 60s?
Yeah.
Was this book written almost 70, 80 years ago now?
Yeah. Oh, let's see what else. Okay, DNA pioneers lash out at religion. Oh, they're really mad at Crick. Basically. So anyway, because he's a Christian who believes in evolution, and they hate him for that. Man, they hate that guy. They're really hard on him. What else?
Then 86 said, the God hypothesis is rather discredited. His distaste for religion, he said, was one of his prime motives in the work that led to the 1953 discovery. I went into science because of these religious reasons, there's no doubt about that. I asked myself what were the two things that appear inexplicable and are used to support religious beliefs, the difference between living and non-living things, and the phenomenon of consciousness. If one of the most brilliant scientists rejected a supernatural explanation on principle, is the debate about life's origin truly objective?
What? So Crick and Koch, K-O-C-H, I don't know if it's cock or coke. I think it's coke. Basically, they did a whole lot of work on consciousness around the late 90s and the early aughts, 2000s. And so basically, they were looking for the mechanism of consciousness and physicality in the brain. And so I don't know what he's going to say here about this. Oh, he's got Paul Davies and Jeremy England. Who's Jeremy England? Why? Now that's a name from my
familiar.
Yeah, it's very familiar.
Freddy Krueger?
In a 2022 video, Paul Davies and Jeremy England discussed the origins of life. Davies confessed, what separates a living cell from a random mixture of chemicals? The answer, information. Life is more than just chemistry. A cell is not just a collection of molecules, it is a system governed by coded instructions, DNA. Life depends on information processing, genetic sequences that act like a program, directing cellular functions. This raises the question, where did the first information used in the first living cells, stored in the genome and epigenetic storage mechanisms, come from? If chemistry alone...
Nessie's here. We got a Nessie.
I'm going to say this again. DNA is not information. It's a molecule. It can create but it pretty much is just a molecule that synthesizes proteins. That's it. To call it information is a category error. That is not what DNA is.
If you define information the way I define it, as basically a structure of matter, that if you have a bit and then you have a bit not, and then a bit not, and a bit not, and a bit,
right.
Basically in space and time, if you have particles arranged that way, that's what information is at the most reduced form. So information is physical.
Yeah.
And DNA basically found that secret about physicality and exploded with it. And it starts with very simple RNA sequences that have this information in them, basically. So we just have to get rid of this idea that this suitcase word of information, you have to look at it a little more carefully and think about what the hell are you really talking about? We're not talking about humans talking on the phone, right?
Right.
We're talking about the physical universe. So,
yes.
Anyway, that's my whole thing. Stop it, atheists. Stop believing in this abstract nonsense. Everything is physical.
Yeah.
God damn it.
Except for Bigfoot.
Shut up, Dave.
alone cannot generate functional information. What is the true origin of life's instruction system?
But let's talk about life first of all, and whether we can even define that.
Oh, no.
What are some of the, and we'll just be brief here, but what are some of the key aspects of what you would, Paul, see as defining something as having life, as being a living thing?
Yes, of course, this could be a very long conversation. It's notoriously hard to define life, and part of the reason for that is we only have one sample of it. If we could find just one other sample of life, we would be able to separate the essential features from the incidental features. Now, a few things, of course, in all the textbooks, like reproduction, for example, and metabolism and so on. But I like to boil it down at the end of the day to what I prefer to call hardware and software. That life is complex chemistry, of course. I'm sure we'll be talking about that. So we have a complex physical system, far from equilibrium. We can't avoid getting into that. And that does sort of surprising things, has an element of unpredictability to it. And all that is true of many systems we wouldn't normally think of.
There's no such thing as software either. That's bullshit. That's bullshit thinking. It's all hardware, basically.
I believe I've forgotten his name. The biology philosopher. You're familiar with him too, I believe. You talked to him at one point.
Dan Nicholson.
Yes.
Yes.
He called out the flaw of using the hardware software analogy, because they are, like in biology, they are both the same thing, which is really weird to say that the hardware and the software are the same thing. They are applied to that, so it doesn't really work.
Yeah, when I was trying to define consciousness, my embodied consciousness or enworlded consciousness, that I believe that our minds are actually in the world around us and in our bodies, all of our bodies, not just our brains, basically. And I was trying to come up with the world around us is the software or the hardware, and the mind and the brain is the software. And finally I said, this is bullshit. This dichotomy, right? It's all hardware. It's just hardware interacting, basically, two physical systems interacting. You are basically a physical system embedded in a physical universe, and you are interacting with your environment around you, and that's why you're conscious. That is the truth of consciousness that we cannot accept because we can't get our little ape brains around it, right? But this is what's happening.
Speak for yourself with your little ape brain.
Yeah, maybe that's why you're conscious. I'm conscious because of Jesus, motherfucker.
We all got little ape brains. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
Who doesn't want to throw their poo at each other now and then, right?
We are apes. We are apes. We keep getting that. It's like, okay, you know.
Durante was talking about visiting someplace and for counseling, when he was still a pastor or something, and the husband and wife had got into a fight, and they decided to start throwing their own you-know-what at each other. And he said it was all over the place. He said, I don't know what they was eating.
Holy shit. I mean, holy shit, literally.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh.
If that took place in a church, that would be literal holy shit.
Well, one of them decided, take this. Then the other one said, really?
I don't know how you even do that. Did they poop on command?
It was quite the tale.
That reminds me of an episode of Righteous Gemstones. I don't know if you've seen those kids going at it.
I was going to say, I'm a father of 2 kids, and I have seen humans do very primate-like things with their own feces, for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we're almost through this.
But the key feature of life is that it's not just hardware, it's software as well. It's full of information processing, storing, and replicating systems. So it's information managed, if you like, complexity. And it's putting that hardware and software together that, for me, is the real challenge of explaining the origin of life.
What makes DNA unique? Unlike any other molecule in nature, DNA functions as both hardware and software, a dual system essential for life. If information-based systems require a designer in every known case, why would DNA...
Hey, I just want to throw out a compliment to the Canoe. he's really got some great slides here. I mean, he does good work.
That's for sure.
If you looked at his blog and his books, he is a really good study guide. He's putting together a good. If he would just leave out the bullshit at the end, the creation nonsense, he could write textbooks and actually make money. So
I was going to say, most of the time his graphics just prove his own point. But he does have good graphics. I was going to, oh man, I had something to say, but I forget what it was now. He was talking about DNA is. Can you rewind it like 10 seconds?
Okay. 5 seconds, 10 seconds. Okay, we got 10.
Any other molecule in nature, DNA functions as both hardware and software, a dual system essential for life.
Yeah.
If information-based systems require a designer in every node.
Does that trigger you?
Okay. Yes, that does. So he's doing something here that's a really bad way of comparing things, where he's saying, oh, these things are similar. That makes them exactly the same. DNA is like a computer code. Computer code has to be written by a coder. Therefore, DNA had to be written by a DNAer. And that's not real. You're comparing. They are similar in some ways, but they're not the same. For instance, you could make in the same fashion a comparison like DNA has to exist on a hard drive on a computer that plugs into an outlet. Therefore, DNA must exist on a hard drive that has to exist on a computer that has to be plugged into an outlet. And now you're talking about simulation theory. You're not talking about God anymore. Now you're just in hard solipsism. You know, it's just because things are similar does not make them exactly the same.
Right. And one way you can prove that DNA is not software like a computer is you can take computer code and start to randomly modify letters, and that code is going to break 99.999% of the time. But with DNA, you can break the hell out of your genome. In fact, it happens to each of us every day, and yet we live about 100 years. So I mean, that tells you right there that DNA is not computer code. If it was, it would fucking break as soon as we had one mutation, one gamma ray. So, okay.
Just sounds like God is protecting us to me, Mike.
What's that?
I said, just sounds like God is protecting us to me, Mike.
Yeah, God is protecting. Yeah, praying. God, they were talking about the power of prayer in some video I heard. And it's like, the power of prayer, it's so obvious. No, it fucking ain't. I've been praying for all kinds of shit all my life, and it ain't happening. It's like I prayed my wife wouldn't come home just now. It's like, please,
one of the proofs of God is that DNA can be cut and be put back together again. That's a proof of God.
There's one guy out in the Tibetan mountains who's just praying every day for our DNA not to go nuclear, and thanks to that one guy.
It's because we're all manifesting DNA to exist. Otherwise, it wouldn't exist.
Right.
God, I prayed that my mom wouldn't find that Playboy centerfold back in the... God damn, that didn't work. No. What the hell? What's wrong with prayer? Okay.
My mom would just throw stuff away that she didn't like. There wasn't any punishment or she found something or like a BB gun or anything she didn't like. It just disappeared. She just threw the shit away.
So I had a jean
never
jacket.
said a word. She would just throw it away and let me find out myself, and just like she's waiting for me to say something. And of course, I wouldn't say anything. So my stuff sometimes just disappeared.
I had a jean jacket back in the 60s when I was a teenager. And my mother hated it. It got it from like a garage sale or something, right? It was about 20 years old. It had all kinds of holes in it and everything. And then that wasn't enough. I went and put it out on the lawn, and I got the 22 and started shooting holes in it to make it even more ragged. And then that wasn't enough, so I got the 30-30 out and I shot it, and the goddamn thing split right up the middle. So then I sewed it together, and my mom hated that jacket so much she threw it in the furnace. And I caught her, and I got it out of the furnace, so now it was half burned. And I wore that jean jacket for another 5 years.
I do not envy you, older gentlemen.
and your need to access pornographic materials in physical format.
Oh, I know.
I grew up in the era where if you wanted to watch some pornographic stuff, you just stayed up later, and then you went on like one of those TV channels where they played the Girls Gone Wild commercial.
I was a teenager when my dad would watch what they called Emmanuel. And that was real soft on Showtime when you had the little box on top of your TV.
Right.
That was the earliest we got it. Yeah.
You modern kids, though, you don't have Sears catalogs, man.
No.
And Montgomery Ward, you don't have that, do you?
We do still have National Geographic. Or National Pornographic, as the Hawaiian shirt man likes to call it.
My uncle would come home from the factory, and he would stop by Grandma and Grandpa's house, which was his parents' house, and he would hang out for a few, and then he would pick up his wife instead of making a trip all the way back home, you know what I mean, and back to pick her up. So for a while their shifts were just like that. So if we were there, he would stop by, he'd change his boots, his work boots and everything, and of course he would head upstairs to use the home bathroom. You know how it is. You go, and he would always leave my grandpa a magazine. And if one of us got to use the bathroom, before it got stashed or whatever, there would be a magazine. That was probably my first exposure to magazines, and Grandma would have a fit. Put those things away, Ray. Put those things away.
I just like to read the articles.
When I was a little
my
boy,
grandmother had a poster of Glenn Campbell naked, one of the centerfold things, in her picture box. So
I can't unsee that.
Grandma and Grandpa were I'm sure they was busy in the day. Hey, I've seen photos of my grandma and grandpa. They were a fine-looking couple back in the day, let me tell you. Grandma had it going on, and
tangent we went on here.
Grandpa had that awesome outfit with that killing hat, you know what I mean? Just looking all cool, and
One more comment on the subject. When I grew up, when I was a little boy back in the dinosaur age, in northern Minnesota, every cabin had an outhouse, not an indoor bathroom. And apparently it was before toilet paper was invented, or for whatever reason they would put Sears and Montgomery Ward's catalogs in the outhouse. And as a young boy, I was like, hey, that's convenient. Okay, let's move on.
Known case. Why would DNA be an exception?
But if our genomes, if our genetic background
here we go.
has all the information.
Who the fuck is Pierce Morgan anyway?
Yeah,
it's
interesting that he talks so much about scientific subjects on his show. It's like he seeks out atheists and scientists to come on and just own him. He likes getting trounced in conversations with people that he can't hope to keep up with, like Richard Dawkins and Neil deGrasse Tyson. It's kind of his thing.
And he might as well be a young Earth creationist and a flat earther and all that stuff.
He says a lot of the same stuff. Yeah,
he does.
Yeah, and you got to watch Dawkins' expression here as he's trying to figure out how to deal with this guy when he does this. Anyway, here we go.
You got Robin and Spooky here too. Hello.
Hey, Robin, Spooky. Okay,
which has led to us being what we are today, and that will obviously extrapolate as we go forward. Then it does beg the question, doesn't it? Where does the original information come from?
Yes, it does. And as far as a biologist is concerned, we're talking about the original information coming at the origin of life. And that's something which biologists and chemists and physicists can deal with. But you've gone right back to the origin of the universe, to the Big Bang, which is another matter entirely, and which is not really relevant to the biological question of what happens once biology gets started, which is the origin of genetics, actually. It's the origin of the information which is passed from generation to generation, from living creature to living creature. That started maybe 3.8, maybe 4 billion years ago. The universe started more like 13.8 billion years ago, which is a much longer time ago, and which is a totally different question, nothing to do with biology.
But doesn't code have to have a coder?
Oh my God.
No, of course it doesn't. Code arises spontaneously at the origin of life. Something very, very simple, probably. the origin of life, which was not genetic, not DNA at least, it would have been some kind of genetic, some kind of coding, which would be a self-replicating molecule. Once you get a self-replicating molecule, then you have the possibility of mutation, which is mistaken encoding.
But where does that come from?
This is why
where does it come from?
This is why I emphasize the point that DNA isn't. It is a code in some sense, but it's not really. It's not a code like that. That's not this. It's not the same thing, because of course creationists will say, if you have a code, it has to have a coder, and if you have a molecule, you have to have a molecular.
Right.
Like, no, that's not the same thing.
Frank Turk says, I believe in the Big Bang, but I know who banged it.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
So Demeter's here. How about that? So Demeter, Otangelo just launched a new channel, and I was like the first or second subscriber to it. And this is his new channel.
You are a sucker for punishment. You just are.
I love it. I don't know. Anyway.
He complains about, he puts himself in all these situations. It's like a sitcom.
Yeah.
So 11th Dimension Demeter is an actual molecular biologist working on actual science in an actual laboratory. And he's old friend. So
very cool.
Anyway. Yeah. In fact, if you look back at my earlier videos, you'll find quite a few discussions with Demeter on origin of life.
I'm trying to be like you, man. I'm still just a lowly student. But
you'll
awesome.
pass.
Did I tell you I ran into Adam in a chat the one night. I think it's the second video I ever did on my channel. He does something in nuclear physics over there in Israel, and we were talking about doing science in the Holy Land and stuff. Yeah, I ran into him in a chat not too long ago, and said, "Yeah, maybe we can get you back on sometime." So we'll see.
Yep.
Very cool. I did at least ace my sociology test today. Got 50 out of 50 questions right.
Good job.
Oh, nice. Sociology.
Yeah. Ask me about conflict perspective.
So what I did with college is I started out taking classes, but I only took classes that I wanted to take, and sociology was never going to be one of them. And then I ended up doing it, auditing the classes. So I didn't need. So when it come time to take a test, I just stood up and left. So and I found that I learned more that way than I did when I tried to play to the test, basically by just listening, and doing the work, basically. Anyway, so I'm kind of one of those assholes that never got a degree.
Yeah, my grandfather actually was a professor of sociology, anthropology, and religious studies at Columbia and Yale universities. So he taught me a lot about those subjects informally, but now I'm getting a formal education on it, and it's been very illuminating. It's very interesting.
Yep. Okay, what else can Piers Morgan say that's really stupid?
Yeah.
It comes from a random accident in chemistry at sometime around 3.8 to 4 billion years ago.
I don't know about
Confronted by Piers Morgan, Richard Dawkins claimed that the origin of life was random chance. But randomness is ineffective for coding because it generates meaningless noise.
It's meaningless.
Even if random gibberish eventually compiles, it's unlikely to produce useful software. Writing functional code is challenging even for skilled developers who rely on reasoning and compilers, designed by humans, not randomness, to translate that code into machine instructions. An atheist is...
Okay, we're going to bypass that because we've already covered why it's not a code, it's not a computer program. If it was a computer program, life would have never evolved. If it wasn't for the floppiness and flexibility of DNA, life would not exist. There's no way that you could be alive because gamma rays, because nicotine, because, Anyway.
Appeals to various imaginary scenarios.
When you eat things, you are exposed to things that, I mean, if DNA weren't pliable, we would all be dead.
And if your cells weren't pliable, and if there weren't all sorts of pseudogenes and little biological nonsense in your genome, evolution would not be possible, basically. It's because we have this gigantic set of things to pick from that these pathways developed. And that's what they miss.
That sound scientific but do not map to reality in one or more essential aspects.
Blah, blah.
But what happens when even renowned scientists step beyond their expertise and make claims that are not grounded in facts? Hypothesis.
I'm going to skip that.
This theory gained significant attention following a groundbreaking discovery in 1977, when scientists first identified submarine hydrothermal vents on the ocean floor.
And you can imagine how many of those existed 4 billion years ago when things first started cooling. These black smokers and white smokers were probably, there were probably hundreds of thousands of them on the ocean floor. And there's just all of these microenvironments basically for shit to develop. And that's also something that they don't consider.
Yeah.
On Origin of Life, the thing that disturbs me the most is trying to figure out how these concentrations of organic molecules developed in certain places. And I think we're going to learn more about that as we go forward. And that's going to give us the key to unlocking Origin of Life, abiogenesis. When we understand what kinds of areas created high concentrations. And it is possible at some point that the entire goddamn ocean was filthy with hundreds of different kinds of amino acids and nucleic acids and sugars and whatever. And it's possible it could have covered the whole ocean, or it could have been concentrated around, certain microenvironments. Either way, we have the concentration necessary for this thing to get kicked off. And that's that. If anybody's researching abiogenesis, that is how you start with the process, right?
Well, that's how I understood it. Is that it these hydrothermal vents force a concentration because proton movement or something like that. Something happens in there, and that forces concentrations. And again, their creationists are asking for, well, what's causing these things to all come together? There it is. This area is forcing these things to pretty much come together.
So this is
so
part
that's why
of,
they don't like it. That's why they don't like it.
This is part of the interconnectedness of evolution. If you were to guess, what field of science has the most evidence for evolution, probably genetics, genomics, paleontology. But then there's all these other fields that also have a ton of support for evolution. So whatever field comes in second, that's really hard to figure out. Because when I was going through asking an AI, how does paleontology support evolution? How does biology support evolution? How does microbiology support evolution? I eventually got around to the point where I asked it, how does volcanology support evolution? And you would probably think that's very tangential. But actually, there's a ton of support for evolution in volcanology, in paleoclimatology, geology. All of these things substantiate evolution. And it gets to the point where in order to be a hardcore young earth creationist, you do have to basically reject virtually the entire body of scientific knowledge.
Yeah.
It is no small amount of science that you can get away with hand waving to be a young earth creationist. You have to reject tidal waves of science, mountains of scientific data and facts and observations and evidence and tests. It's mind-blowing.
When they say we don't reject science, and I said, name a field of science that young earth creationists do not reject.
Right. Yeah.
Name one.
And if you start looking into inorganic chemistry, into geology, and into minerals and how minerals form, we always think sodium chloride, right? Real simple inorganic compounds. In minerals, they have these complexes that build with water and these strange molecules, right?
Yeah.
And it is almost as complex as organic chemistry when you get into it. And all of that too was involved in this early abiogenesis process. And you would have to know a ton about that.
Absolutely.
In order to combine it, right? And find
it. This is why origin of life research is such an incredibly interdisciplinary field.
Yeah. Oh, let's see. Okay. We'll see what else. What else? We're almost there.
These events revealed thriving ecosystems in extreme conditions, completely independent of sunlight. This discovery suggested that such environments could have been ideal sites for the origin of life, providing a rich source of energy and essential minerals. Stanley Miller gave a clear answer to this hypothesis. Underwater breathers do not produce organic compounds, they decompose them. The RNA world hypothesis, first proposed in the 1960s, had key contributions from Carl Woese, Francis Crick, and Leslie Orgel. It suggests that RNA, capable of both storing genetic information and catalyzing chemical reactions, may have been the first self-replicating molecule, serving as a precursor to modern life based on DNA and proteins. If RNA cannot spontaneously form, self-replicate, or function without proteins, does it really explain the origin of life? The RNA world hypothesis gained traction with the publication of the 1986 paper Origin of Life, The RNA World by Walter Gilbert. He won the Nobel Prize in Chemistry in 1980 for his pioneering work on the determination of base sequences in nucleic acids. His contributions were crucial in advancing our understanding of genetic information, laying the groundwork for modern genomics. RNA was claimed to have been the first life-essential molecule on Earth, for its dual function as an information carrier and an enzyme. But making RNA naturally is a tall order. RNA's synthesis under early Earth conditions remains a formidable barrier. A competing hypothesis to the RNA world hypothesis is the metabolism first hypothesis. It was first formally proposed in the 1970s. Regarding this, Leslie Orgel delivered a decisive critique in his article The Implausibility of Metabolic Cycles on Prebiotic Earth, stating that no compelling arguments support the assumption that all necessary catalytic steps in proposed metabolic cycles could occur rapidly enough to sustain the cycle. He emphasized that the absence of specific, non-enzymatic catalysts and the lack of demonstrated chemical plausibility make metabolic cycle theories untenable, arguing that they must stand on their own merits rather than merely opposing competing.
And there are hundreds of other papers that talk about these metabolic cycles.
Exactly.
Yeah, I have to look at this.
I have a question. How much of Otangelo's audience can even follow what he's talking about at all?
Yeah,
I doubt it's a substantial proportion. Probably most of them only really tune in at the end where he goes, "Oh, it's impossible," and then they're like, "Yeah, that checks out. No need to check that or look any deeper into the details."
Yep. So here's some minerals, basically. What I'm talking about with the complexity of geology, even without carbon chemistry, right? So let's see. How the hell? Why are you cutting that out? Alt minus. There we go. Okay. So I mean, this is all just basically inorganic chemistry, and they show you all these different complexes and unbelievable structures. Each one forms a microenvironment. A lot of them can encapsulate a lot of other organic molecules, and these things there's billions of possible structures like this in the earth right now, and back then there were as many. So that's the point I wanted to make. Oh, let's see, is this okay, going back. Plus biology. Okay, I have to look at this article and see what the guy is saying. Of course, I got to read the paper.
Competing hypotheses. Meet Luca, last universal common ancestor, the supposed great-grandparent of all life today. According to the established narrative, Luca was not the first life but the root of our family tree, equipped with DNA, proteins, and a membrane.
And it was not a single cell. It was probably a gigantic ocean full of organisms, basically, Luca. This idea that it was a single cell doesn't work.
It's said to be a window into early cells. The concept of Luca was first proposed in the late 1970s and early 1980s, with significant contributions from scientists like Carl Woese, who used ribosomal RNA sequencing to infer the existence of a common ancestor for all life forms around 1977. In the 1990s, research on Luca advanced with phylogenetic analyses and molecular clock studies. Carl Woese was a microbiologist and biophysicist who discovered the domain archaea, revolutionizing our understanding of life's evolutionary relationships through ribosomal.
He's got wonderful pictures of these guys that I've never seen before, like Haeckel, which I really appreciate, Otangelo.
RNA sequencing. He claimed that Luca was not the first cell but the organism from which all life evolved. Fuca, the first universal common ancestor, would be even earlier, claimed to be maybe simpler, with basic molecules before DNA. It's a fuzzy idea, but it's how some imagine the very first steps toward life. Carl Woese concluded that there is no consistent and satisfactory picture of the universal ancestor because phylogenetic analyses of various genes produced conflicting data, contradicting the expectation of a single, well-defined lineage. For over a century, the tree of life was presented.
This is the important part. You know, this bush of life that was at the bottom, basically.
Yeah.
And these guys, they criticize the tree of life based on this. This is how evolution worked. This is how abiogenesis happened. Okay. It wasn't, I mean, if it was just one cell, you know, that developed and then we all descended from that one cell, that would be a little implausible. But this, with the bush, with all these massive amount of proteins, I don't want to get started on Cell Cordova, but we'll deal with his protein orchard another time. But anyway.
As a clear, branching pattern of evolution, leading back to a single last universal common ancestor, Luca. But modern research has shattered this simple picture.
Yes.
In a 2000 article titled Uprooting the Tree of Life, Ford Doolittle challenged the traditional notion of a single last universal common ancestor. He wrote, there would never have been a single cell that could be called the last universal common ancestor. Correct. As Woese has written, the ancestor cannot have been a particular organism, a single organismal lineage. It was a loosely knit, diverse conglomeration of primitive cells that evolved as a unit, eventually breaking into several distinct communities, which in turn became the three primary lines of descent: bacteria, archaea, and eukaryotes.
So he's arguing for our case. What the fuck?
Sounds like it.
Yeah. It's like exactly what we're saying.
Yeah, and then these bunches broke off, and then what happens when things get in their own environment, then they're going to change in their own environment, in their own ways. That's evolution, Otangelo.
I notice Otangelo does that a lot. His creationism, it's very evolutionary.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Yep.
It's just explaining it and then saying, but it's impossible.
You're right, yeah.
Here's what they say. Yep, they got it all explained for you, but that's impossible. Okay.
God did it.
You know, we've said Otangelo's name more than 3 times, and he hasn't shown up.
I know.
That's never happened before.
That doesn't happen frequently.
Yeah, I don't know.
I love, too, that they pronounce the first universal common ancestor as Fuka. I guess that sounds better than fucka.
Yeah, fuck all. We could call it fuck all because it was like a whole population, right? So it's fuck all. Yeah.
In the 2000s, researchers developed synthetic protocells, simple, cell-like structures, to explore life's emergence.
Showing
Studies showed lipid membranes, metabolic pathways, and genetic material could self-assemble. However, achieving stable, functional membranes remains a challenge, as they are inherently fragile and prone to disintegration. Membranes are highly unstable. They break apart under mechanical stress, temperature shifts, and chemical fluctuations. If protocells are too fragile to survive early Earth, how could they have played a role in life's origin? On land,
how did they survive in our body today? Like when you jump down from, when you walk down the stairs and put all that mechanical, how did they survive? I don't know.
Volcanic springs or pools brim with energy and chemicals. Maybe these hot spots cooked up life's first ingredients. But harsh thermal conditions pose a problem. High temperatures degrade nucleic acids, proteins, and lipids.
Deemer and Dahmer, we've had Dahmer on the channel before, showed that basically there was these hot pools. Their theory is that, it happened in these geologic pools, around volcanoes and geysers and things like that. But they showed how basically there were heat cooling cycles. Like the water would wash up on the shore and it would cool and then float down. And they actually launched, I don't know, with their experiment, they threw some chemicals in one of these pools and created all kinds of complex organic compounds with these heat cooling cycles. And this is something that Demeter knows a lot about, the cycles, basically. So there were a lot of cycles going on at the same time.
Isn't that colored stuff around the edges different kinds of funky bacteria or something?
I think those might be sulfur compounds. Yeah, so, some of them are bacteria. And what are they called? The things that survive in horrible environments. Kind of like me when I was using drugs. what do they call? What am I looking for, Austin? Extremophiles.
Extremophiles. Yeah. I was just remembering who Jeremy England is when you asked me that. I was a little distracted.
Oh yeah.
He's a physicist. He's a physicist who's also an Orthodox rabbi.
Okay. And he did some really interesting theoretical work on complexity, didn't he?
Yeah, he worked on adaptation. Like he was pivotal to the development of abiogenetic theory. He was like talking about how spontaneous emergence of life can be explained by the tendency of matter to organize itself in ways that better dissipate energy.
I think it was.
I should have read my chat. I would have got it.
I think it was Anton Petrov maybe did a thing on. They were finding all these different new life forms in these really nasty, hot, acidic vents and everything, and that there is the idea that life maybe could have started there, because if in that extreme, and then just getting to a better condition can only be better, right?
Yeah. Not just that life could have developed from early extremophiles, but that and it's just an inescapable fact, because extremophiles exist, that life can be a lot more resilient than we thought.
Yeah.
Environments that we previously considered completely hostile to the development of living organisms are actually not. It depends on what kind of organism, because some organisms can survive environments that we thought no living organism could survive. There are organisms that can survive in environments that are super toxic, super hot, have super high pressure, or the inverse, are super cold, have no pressure, like, our favorite little friends, the tardigrades, the water bears. They can survive in extremely cold, extremely pressureless environments. Extremophiles can survive in extremely high pressure, extremely hot environments.
He was saying there needs to be more research done into this, because for a lot of folks, they just, like you were saying, well, there's probably not a lot there, you know what I mean? And the more they look, the more they're finding there.
I'm living proof. I'm living proof of this extremophile thing. Because 20 years ago, when I was a drug addict and I was snorting an 8-ball of cocaine every 4 hours and drinking a quart and a half of vodka a day,
right?
And I'm still alive. I mean, life. Yeah, I was an extremophile. So.
Science can't explain that. It had to be God.
Can't explain it. No. I had a doctor look at the breathalyzer once, and he said, there must be something wrong with this instrument. Because you're still walking around and talking. I don't believe it. That's a true story, by the way.
I worked with a guy that said his brother was diabetic or something, so they had access to a lot of needles, and they used to just experiment with, wonder what would happen if we shot this up.
Yeah. Oh, that Alexander Shogun, his name is, or something. He was a guy that used to synthesize all these psychedelic compounds and try them out. I mean, and he lived till he was like, I think 80 years old or something like that. It's amazing that he lived. Anyway, we got a few minutes left.
Keith Richards is still alive, and Richard.
Oh
Simmons,
yeah, there's another.
And Richard Simmons isn't.
He looks like he's been through it though. Anyway, okay, 4 minutes left.
Form. If hot springs destroy complex molecules as quickly as they form, how could they be the cradle of life?
How could they?
The journey through our first episode has revealed a persistent enigma. From primordial soups to volcanic springs, no natural process yet bridges the gap from chemistry to life's information-driven systems. We've explored Darwin's warm little pond, Miller's amino acids, RNA's potential, and Luca's roots, yet each hypothesis stumbles on complexity, stability, or the source of biological information. Can heat create life if it destroys its parts? Remains unanswered, echoing the broader question: if chemistry alone falters, what force or mechanism
just wrapping up? He's just repeating everything he said.
What do you think?
Yeah. I don't know if there's any more that we need to be concerned with. Well, maybe world, and they just. Oh, what is this? X-ray of life. Oh, this is his book. Okay, volume 1, from prebiotic chemistry to cells. So that ought to be interesting. Well, the neat thing about this, he's probably got a lot of references in it, which, if you want to find out about abiogenesis, Otangelo kind of presents a strange situation where he actually gives you a lot of information that you need to understand evolution and abiogenesis at the same time that he's totally denying it.
Yeah.
It's like, well, if it was hot, how could it be cold? How could life happen if it was hot and not cold, or cold and not hot? You know, that blah, blah, blah.
Well, that's what we were saying about the other day about the creationists, where they'll accept all these mechanisms, but then they'll just say, "But that's not evolution." So
right,
yeah,
it doesn't matter what you present; they're just not. They're just, well, that's
right.
not evolution. Well, then what do you want? And then they'll give you some crazy answer that's like X-Men or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. What do we got here? Oh, we got some stuff here. What the hell? Oh, this is a cell. This is a eukaryotic cell. It's kind of big. It's kind of cool. Something in my current studies, basically. These codimers or whatever, these vesicles, and how they get transferred through from the ER endoplasmic reticulum, where all the little ribosomes are that make the proteins, and then they get transferred to the cis Golgi, the medial Golgi, and trans Golgi, where they get modified, and then they get like encapsulated, and they get little coatings on them, and then they go out and they bloop either into the cell membrane or else into the external, the extracellular matrix. But yeah, it's all so complicated when you look at eukaryotes. But then when you go back and look at prokaryotes, a lot simpler shit going on back then. And prokaryotes were the source of it all. I mean, they were I think they still are the most dominant life form on Earth. We amount to just a little tiny smidgen compared to those fuckers. There's like 10 to the 30 of them in the ocean today. And each with their own individual DNA, which is incredible. So,
and that speaks to the pathos of why we're having this discussion. We covered the ethos and the logos a lot in this video, in this stream, but the pathos is really important too, because guess what? Those microbes impact life a lot. They impact you and me. They impact medicine. They impact immunology. They impact basically every level of life. And evolution also is important to understand because it helps us understand ourselves. It helps us understand our psychology and what motivates us and what it means to be a living human. And this is, I think that is a big part of the reason creationists attack evolution. They don't want you to know that you are an ape. They don't want you to know that you have evolutionary drives in your psychology and that you're not really sinning. You're just looking at that magazine with the naked woman on it because your neurons are activating, you know? They want you to feel bad and to feel guilty for those things. And understanding evolution lets you know that you don't really have to feel guilty. You are just an ape reacting to hormones coursing through you. So I wanted to take a second to address the pathos a little bit.
And I found a cool quote when I was looking up the nematode stuff, that if everything disappeared but nematodes, there would be a perfect replication of everything on Earth that the nematodes would represent.
Yeah.
And that's why I wrote I responded to Otangelo's email with congratulations. I am so excited. Now you can reach even more people and convince them that the Bible is the start of science, and hence ruin their lives for the next century or two. And the reason why I am anti-religion is because if we don't start to understand what we really are, that we are a microbiome along with being an organism, right? And we're dependent on all these things. There's all these things that drive us to be to do bad things, right? If we understand what we are, there's some hope of doing better. And that's kind of what I would like for the human race.
We're a fancy host
As
for
I bid
bacteria.
you adieu.
And I would say on the converse side of that, the pathos, for religious people, you don't have to reject science to be a true Christian. People like Otangelo will tell you you have to reject
Yeah.
evolution. You have to take Genesis literally, or you're not a true Christian. And that's
It's supernatural. It's a
bullshit.
supernatural belief, right?
It's
You have to believe in
manipulation.
Jesus. Yeah, you got to believe in Jesus and heaven and afterlife and everything, which is a supernatural belief. It has no place in science, and I think we were discussing this before the one day that if they would just say, "Look, I'm not going to argue with science. I just have a faith."
Yeah.
Rather than doing like what Donnie Deals and stuff does, where they're trying to stick this science in when they should just no. I just have a belief. It's supernatural. I can't demonstrate it, but that's my religion. Yeah. Instead of doing this goofy science stuff, which just in the end, anybody that just not just scientists, but some lay people actually try to look at it, they're going to see that they're just pushing a bunch of nonsense. And why, again, if your religion is so great, why aren't you talking about that rather than trying to poke holes in, into some science theory you don't like?
The reason is that people like Otangelo, they don't have enough faith to be a Christian.
Yeah.
They have to try to prove it with science, right? So they go through all these convolutions.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is that there is a bit of a conspiracy among some of these groups, like Creations, whatever the hell it is, and AIG, and it's called the Wedge document, basically, where they actually want a Christian nationalism and a theocracy, and this is one of the ways that they can undermine science and reason, basically, and promote this kind of shit. So there's a combination of a bunch of people that don't have enough faith to be Christians that are just like, we got to prove it with science, right? Because this God idea is ridiculous.
That's part of it, and another part of it is they're scared that evolution is going to make people question their faith, question their biblical exegesis. Like the conservative male Christian guys, he basically came out and admitted it, that this guy was asking, his student was asking him about dinosaurs and about evolution, and he started questioning his faith. And people have a very anti-change bias. So of course he decided on, a way of interpreting the facts that doesn't require him to change his views at all. It doesn't require him to change his behavior or outlook at all, which is kind of difficult to do. So
just watched a video that came out a couple days ago. He's up there preaching to a room full of kids. I didn't come from no monkey.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Oh my God.
So how are you on numerology?
Oh God,
I love numerology. I love numerology.
Numerology makes my eye twitch.
Okay.
You want to look at a video on Saturday? I got an interesting one. It's not very long, so I might have to find another one. But
I'm 27,099 days old today. I'm going to be 27,100 tomorrow. I love numerology. Like we look at our numbers, and when they're cool, like Scott just passed up 22,222, which is something you only do. If you're really lucky, you'll do that 3 times in your life. Everybody gets 1 1 1 1 1, 2 2 2 2 happens around 60, and I think 3 3 3 the threes happen around 93 or something. So it takes a while, and nobody sees 4 4 4 4 4. Except for people like,
I was trying to look around for some
Rolling Stones.
Yeah, I was trying to look around for something a little different, and it's like numerology. We
may as well get into that.
Yeah, all right.
Me and Keith Richards will probably see. Me and Keith Richards will see 44,444, but nobody else will.
This guy finds 7 a lot because 7 is the God number. And if you take this one and this one and this one, look, you get 7. And if you divide this one by this one, you get 7. And if you add this one and look over here, what do you know? It's 7.
Okay, guys, we got to get out of here.
The numerology gets my goat for sure.
Yeah,
but it's fun as hell, though, isn't it?
Oh, what is that Kurt Vonnegut book where he does that little thing in the beginning in the first page about God is apparently not into numerology?
Well,
I went.
Let me tell you what, scoff if you will. You want a lot of subscribers, all right? This guy here is quoting somebody else, right? So I said, well, maybe I'll look on this other guy's channel and get another video, right? We'll have a couple videos because one's not very long, right? So I went to look at the other channel, and he doesn't really have that many videos, and he's got like 97,000 subscribers. I'm like, really? He's only got a handful of videos, and he's doing this, like I say, well, look, here's 2 and here's 4 and here's 8, and if you subtract 2 and minus 5 and add 37 and divide by 4 and you get 7 or whatever the thing he's doing. He's got like fucking almost 100,000 subscribers. He's only got a handful of videos. I'm like, seriously? Man.
People gobble that stuff up.
You make up this nonsense. 100,000 subscribers. Unbelievable. Unbelievable.
That kind of stuff goes beyond just like theist kooks, and that appeals to all kinds of kooks, like, quantum healing kooks.
And then I'm thinking, well, shit, maybe we'll get some views on it. You know what I mean?
Maybe.
So
I don't know if this. I thought it was a different quote, but Kurt Vonnegut. At least the world will end, an event anticipated with such fervor, and it will end very soon, but not in the year 2000, which has come and gone. From that, I conclude that God Almighty is not heavily into numerology.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, that is a good one.
I think that's a good one to end on.
It already came and went, didn't it?
Let's get out of here.
7 years and everything from Israel and all that. Every time they pick one of those numbers, they didn't do their math right for some reason.
But surely this time.
Sir, maybe next time.
I have it down for
Goodbye,
next Wednesday.
All right, good night, everybody.
Good night.
Goodbye, cruel world.